She boarded that plane as a symbol of success, but it only took one moment to remind everyone watching that success doesn't always protect you. What would you have done in her shoes? Let us know in the comments section below. She sat upright, spine aligned like a ruler in seat 1A. Brenda Gregory didn't slouch, not in boardrooms, not in interviews, and certainly not in first class. The gold-plated lapel pin on her navy blue blazer shimmered each time she turned her head. B.G., etched in clean, proud script. A custom gift from her assistant, given the day her company hit its first $10 million 0-cents quarter. She had laughed when she received it, but now she wore it like armor. Today wasn't just another trip to New York. It was the trip. She was preparing to close the deal that would land her firm a legacy-defining merger, placing her in a league usually reserved for white men in suits who spoke in buzzwords and sat on boards for fun. She was 47, black, brilliant, and unbothered, until now. It started with a soft, polite voice. "Excuse me, ma'am, I'm really sorry to bother you." Brenda glanced up from her iPad, finger hovering over the highlighted bullet points in her investor pitch. The flight attendant was white, no older than 25, with a nervous smile that curled too tightly at the edges. "There's been a bit of a mix-up," she continued. "Would you be willing to swap seats with another passenger? It's just, he has some mobility needs. It would really help us out." The words were chosen carefully, rehearsed even, Brenda could tell, and still something about them didn't sit right. "Mobility needs?" she asked calmly, eyes narrowing with polite curiosity. The attendant hesitated, glancing toward the rear of the first-class cabin. "He just prefers a window seat. And your seat—" "I paid for this window seat," Brenda interrupted. No raise in her voice, no heat, just fact. 6 months ago. Directly through the airline, fully refundable, upgraded fare. "I understand," the woman said quickly. "And again, I do apologize. He's a VIP with our airline, one of our Platinum Elite travelers. We just thought maybe you'd—" Brenda set down her eye. There it was. She'd heard the tone before, even when she had the degrees, the titles, the influence. It was the same tone that once asked her if she was sure she belonged in the executive dining room at Mercer Holdings. The same that asked her if her assistant got approval before scheduling Brenda's appearance at a high-profile panel. A tone of assumption, soft enough to be deniable, firm enough to sting. She looked down the aisle, past the rows of pressed collars and leather briefcases, until her gaze landed on him. Mid-60s, white, silver hair combed neatly, standing with an entitled stillness by 1D. He didn't look over. He didn't have to. That stung more. Brenda breathed in deep, the way her therapist taught her. She nodded once and stood, moving with calm precision. "Of course," she said. "Let me grab my things." "Oh, thank you so much," the attendant exhaled in relief. "We'll make sure to bring you something extra for your trouble." Brenda didn't respond. She slid her iPad into her bag, took her water bottle from the armrest holder, and tucked her boarding pass back into her wallet. Her body moved on autopilot, but her mind was thundering. The walk to 5C felt endless. She passed people who didn't know her, didn't see her, really see her. Just another woman in coach, another black passenger moving to make someone else comfortable. She sat down quietly, now behind a curtain, tucked into a narrower seat, surrounded by the dry coughs and crinkling snack wrappers of economy class. The irony didn't escape her. Her entire career had been about building access, changing rooms, being at the table. Yet here she was, moved, minimized, and made to disappear. A man across the aisle gave her a once-overs and said nothing. She opened her iPad again, but the numbers blurred, the logic faded. In its place rose the memory of her grandmother's voice. "Don't let them make you small, Brenda. You hear me? Not after what we've been through." She closed her eyes. The pressure behind them burned. 5 minutes passed, then 10, and then Brenda moved again. But this time, It wasn't to accommodate someone else. She stood up, pulled her phone from her tote, and walked slowly toward the front of the plane. Past the curious glances. Past the half-curtains and class lines. She wasn't going to shout. She wasn't going to plead. She was going to do what she did best, handle it. The same attendant met her with a startled expression. "Ma'am." Brenda held up a single finger. "I'd like to speak to your captain and your regional supervisor. And while you're at it, I need the name of the man now sitting in 1A. The attendant blinked. Is there a problem?" "There will be if I don't get answers in the next 3 minutes." The authority in Brenda's voice was so sharp, so absolute, that even the woman's posture changed. Behind her, the man in 1A was now glancing over, as were 2 other passengers in first class. Phones tilted, eyebrows lifted. And somewhere in the back of the plane, a young woman in glasses had just opened her camera app and pressed record. The first domino had just fallen, and Brenda Gregory was done being polite. The flight attendant returned moments later with a new stiffness in her step and a second woman in tow, older, wearing a blazer that tried hard to look important. Her name tag read Evan Tran, Regional Service Manager. Brenda didn't move from where she stood, arms crossed in front of her with a kind of composure that said, "I've handled worse in courtrooms and boardrooms. You won't shake me with turbulence and protocol." "Miss Gregory, I understand there's been a misunderstanding," Evan said, her tone cautious but rehearsed. Brenda tilted her head. "Misunderstanding implies this was an accident." Evan glanced at the flight attendant beside her, who suddenly found a great deal of interest in her clipboard. "We'd like to offer you a voucher for the inconvenience," Evan said, extending a crisp white envelope. "It's a significant credit, $750.00. And we'll also refund your upgrade fee." Brenda didn't even glance at the envelope. "That man is still in my seat." "Yes," Evan said, slower now. "But as I understand it, you agreed to move." "No," Brandon corrected. "I was pressured to move under the assumption that this airline prioritized someone else's preference over my paid reservation." There was a stillness behind them now. That invisible but unmistakable shift that happens when people start listening without looking, when nearby passengers stop pretending to read their newspapers or emails and start really tuning in. Brenda knew it well. It was the same shift she used to feel in board meetings, when she said the thing nobody else had the courage to say aloud. Evan folded her hands. "Miss Gregory, we understand your frustration. The gentleman in question is a Platinum Elite member who's flown with us for over 20 years. We simply—" "And I'm the founder and CEO of Globe Strategies," Brenda replied, her voice smooth. "Which has brought your airline close to $250,000 in travel bookings this fiscal year alone. Did your system flag that?" Evan's eyes flickered. She hadn't checked. Brenda let that land, then added, "I'm not interested in your vouchers. I'm interested in accountability. I want to know why a white man's preference was prioritized over a black woman's paid reservation, and why no one saw a problem with that until I stood up." Silence followed. Not even the flight attendant dared to scribble on her pad. Evan cleared her throat. "I'll have to speak with the captain." Brendan gave a small nod. "Good. I'll wait right here." It wasn't long before the pilot himself appeared. A tall man, maybe mid-40s, with a trimmed beard and the calm demeanor of someone used to flying through storms. His name badge read Captain Harris, and unlike the others, he didn't speak right away. He listened. "I heard there's a concern about seat assignment," he said gently. Brenda turned to him. "Captain, I was removed from seat 1A after paying full fare 6 months in advance, simply because another passenger preferred my seat. I moved without raising a fuss, but I am now asking for this to be corrected before we leave the gate." He nodded once, listening. "That's fair." Evan interjected quickly. "Captain, we've already made the switch and we're trying to avoid a larger issue." With all due respect, he cuts in, if a passenger paid for that seat, it's theirs. That's not negotiable. Brenda raised an eyebrow. Finally, she thought. The captain walked up to the older man in 1A. Words were exchanged quietly. The man looked displeased, his mouth tightening into a line, but ultimately he stood. No apology, not even a glance in Brenda's direction. Brenda didn't need it. She walked back to her seat, calm and proud, her heels echoing with quiet thunder on the first-class floor. As she slid into 1A, the leather welcomed her back like an old friend. She crossed her legs, buckled her belt, and opened her iPad again, this time with focus. The world had righted itself by an inch, but that inch mattered. A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. Men? She turned to find a young woman, mid-20s, big brown eyes and nervous energy, hovering with her phone slightly raised. I hope it's okay, but I recorded what happened earlier. I think people need to see it. The way you handled it, that was powerful. Brendan blinked. You recorded it? The young woman nodded. Just the part when you stood up. I've seen things like this before, but no one ever says anything. You did. Brenda studied her for a long second, then gave a small smile. What's your name? Lucia Reyes. Well, Miss Reyes, if you're going to share it, send it to me first. I might want to say something of my own. Lucia lit up, nodding eagerly, and returned to her seat. The flight took off 15 minutes later. Brenda's seatback reclined slightly as the plane ascended, but her mind stayed grounded in thought. She hadn't intended to cause a scene, that wasn't her way, but there were moments, rare, undeniable moments, when silence was more dangerous than the fallout of speaking up. When they landed at JFK, she checked her messages. Her inbox had already started buzzing. Lucia had uploaded the clip, 48 seconds. No names mentioned, just a black woman standing tall, speaking clearly and asking, why? It had 32,000 views. By the time Brenda got into her town car, it was at 110,000. She hadn't said much in the video, but that didn't matter. People weren't watching for a speech. They were watching for the moment someone who looked like them refused to shrink. Brenda looked out the window at the city skyline rising in the distance. She had meetings tomorrow, she had numbers to review, but something deeper had just begun, and this time it wasn't just business. She didn't know it yet, but tomorrow's headlines would bear her name. And for once, they'd get the whole story. By noon the next day, Brenda Gregory's face was everywhere. It was surreal, almost like watching someone else live a version of her life. She sat in her hotel suite's living room, phone in hand, scrolling through headlines that came faster than she could refresh. Black CEO confronts airline over discrimination. Brenda Gregory stands her ground and inspires millions. She deserved that seat, trending nationwide. Lucia's clip had gone viral overnight. It was picked up by micro-influencers, then morning shows, then mainstream media. Brenda's quiet but firm resistance had become a symbol, and she, whether she wanted to or not, was now at the center of a conversation far larger than her. Her assistant Nina was already texting from the conference venue, breathless. People keep stopping me to ask if I'm with the Brenda Gregory. You're a legend now. Brenda wasn't so sure that was a good thing. She didn't seek the spotlight. She sought results, change, progress. The reason she founded Globe Strategies in the first place was to give people like her a seat at the table, without having to explain why they deserved to be there. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was Rachel. Her little sister didn't usually text during business hours, but when she did, it meant something. Proud doesn't begin to cover it. Call me when you breathe. Brenda smiled softly, then stared out the window at the Manhattan skyline. It shimmered beneath the late morning sun. Sturdy, indifferent. The same way she felt when she walked into meetings where she was the only black woman in the room, or when she made her first $1 million while men in suits laughed at her startup pitch. She slipped on her blazer. Blue again, the same one from the flight. Today was the merger pitch, an acquisition that would make Globe one of the most powerful minority-led consulting firms in the country. She wasn't going to let a viral video distract her from that. When she walked into the executive boardroom at 12:30 p.m., the room went still. Not because she was late, she was always precisely on time, but because of who she now was outside the room. Eyes followed her as she pulled out her chair. Whispers buzzed like faint static. One of the investors, white, late 50s, red tie, offered her a too-wide smile as she sat. "Ms. Gregory, I saw that clip last night. Stirring stuff. Really shook things up." Brendan didn't blink. "I'm here to talk business. Let's stay focused." He looked momentarily chastised. Good. The presentation started. She was flawless. Clear, assertive, grounded in numbers and strategy. Her presence was magnetic, the kind that couldn't be ignored, even by those hoping to reduce her to a headline or a moment of trending outrage. But halfway through her slide on global retention analytics, the door opened, quietly. A woman entered, handing a note to the lead partner at the table. He read it, nodded slightly, then looked up at Brenda. "Miss Gregory, we've just received word. The airline's corporate VP of Public Relations is requesting a meeting with you, privately, here in the building." Brenda kept her face still. "During my pitch?" "They've made it clear it's urgent. Media pressure, perhaps." She didn't let the insult land. She'd dealt with worse distractions. "I'll finish my pitch," she said. "Then I'll decide if I'm available." And she did. 25 minutes later, her closing slide hit with a precision that left no room for debate. Globe's proposal wasn't just good. It was revolutionary. Brenda could see it on their faces. They wanted a sign that afternoon. She stood. "I appreciate your time," she said, gathering her tablet. "I'll be in my suite if you have any questions." She didn't wait for them to respond. 10 minutes later, the airline rep was waiting for her in the mezzanine-level conference room. Brenda entered slowly, closing the door behind her. The woman, tall, blonde, white, stood and extended her hand. "I'm Eliza Montgomery, VP of PR for Sterling Air. Thank you for seeing me." Brenda looked at the outstretched hand, then shook it briefly. "Ms. Montgomery?" Eliza smiled awkwardly, then sat. "I'm sure you know why I'm here. I imagine it's not about frequent flyer miles." The PR executive laughed too loudly. No, it's about the video, the situation on the flight." Brenda said nothing, just watched her. Eliza cleared her throat. "We want to apologize, unreservedly, on behalf of Sterling Air. What happened was unacceptable. We're reviewing protocols, and we'd like to collaborate on a joint statement." Brenda folded her hands. "Why?" Eliza echoed, confused. "How might you want a joint statement?" Brenda asked again, her tone cool. "To control the narrative? To soften the blow?" Eliza blinked. "Well, to show unity, and perhaps, if you're open to it, we'd like to explore a brand partnership, feature you in a campaign, highlighting powerful Black entrepreneurs. We believe it would be mutually beneficial." There it was. Brenda leaned back in her chair. "Let me ask you something, Ms. Montgomery. If Lucia Reyes hadn't recorded that clip, if it had just been my word against your airlines, would you be here right now?" Eliza hesitated. "Well, it's hard to say." "No," Brenda said, standing. "It's not." She grabbed her phone from the table. "I'm not interested in being your PR solution. I'm interested in making sure no Black woman ever gets asked to give up her seat again. You want a real partnership? Fix your policies. Publish your data. Fire the ones who thought it was acceptable to make me invisible." Eliza looked stunned. "Are you saying no to the campaign?" "I'm saying no to the performative apology tour," Brenda replied, opening the door. "This is bigger than your brand." The woman stood, mouth parted slightly, but Brenda was already gone. Back in her suite, she exhaled. The noise was growing, but so was her voice. And this time she wasn't going to let the world put it on mute. The moment Brenda stepped off the elevator into the rooftop lounge, everything felt different. The deal had closed 2 hours ago. Globe Strategies was now officially aligned with one of the most powerful international consultancy groups in the industry. The contract was signed in ink, with Brenda Gregory's name at the top, not buried on page 16 under diversity initiatives. It was hers. And now she stood at the edge of a New York skyline, looking out at a city that had for years dared her to be anything less than extraordinary. The event was informal, just a private celebration organized by her team. But even in jeans and a tailored coat, she radiated presence. The kind that couldn't be bought or borrowed. It came from every no she turned into a yes, every closed door she had pushed open with her own hands. Nina rushed over first, practically bouncing in her heels. "You did it. I mean, we did it. But mostly you." Brenda laughed, the sound warm and genuine for the first time in days. "We did it. And you owe yourself a drink for holding down the entire floor this morning." Nina grinned. "Already working on it." Behind her, Rachel appeared, coat still buttoned, eyes fierce with pride. "You didn't call me after that PR stunt with the airline." Brenda smirked. "Because I knew you'd tell me to go scorched earth." Rachel shrugged. "That's because they deserved it. But you handled it better than I would have. I saw the live stream. You and half the country, apparently." The video had passed 2 million views by that afternoon. Media outlets had asked for interviews, panel invitations poured in. Sterling Air had issued a new public statement, this time not just about Brenda, but about company-wide policy changes. They'd pledged a full audit of their customer service training, promised a new equity council, and even suspended the employee responsible for the incident pending investigation. But none of that mattered as much to Brenda as the messages from strangers. Black women, young girls, people who saw themselves in her and thanked her for doing what they'd been too exhausted, too afraid, or too outnumbered to do. She walked over to the bar, picked up a glass of sparkling water, and toasted quietly to herself. To still being here. To never backing down. To always buying the damn seat and keeping it. Across the room, a familiar voice called out, "You're hard to find when you're successful." Brenda turned. Evan Tran stood near the door, visibly uncertain, clutching a small box in her hands. "You came," Brenda said, surprised but not unkind. Evan nodded. "I wanted to see you, not in a professional capacity." Brenda eyed the box. "You're not going to try to hand me another voucher, are you?" Evan flushed. "No, This is personal." She stepped forward and placed the box gently on a nearby table. Brenda opened it slowly. Inside was a small sculpture, a glass figure, abstract and beautiful, fluid lines frozen in motion, its shape somehow both grounded and reaching upward. "My sister made it," Evan said softly. "She's a black artist. Been trying to get her work seen for years. She watched your video and called me in tears. Told me she felt seen. And she asked me, 'What did you do about it?'" Brenda's expression shifted. Something in her chest cracked open just a little more. "I couldn't answer her," Evan continued. "So, this isn't from Sterling Air. This is from me. Thank you for not letting us look away." Brenda closed the box, nodded once, and said the only thing that mattered. "Tell her it reached me." They didn't hug. They didn't need to. Evan left quietly, and Brenda stayed by the window, the glass figure resting beside her. Nina appeared again, holding her phone. "You're trending again, but this time it's not the flight. It's your quote from the press Q&A after the deal." Brenda raised an eyebrow. "Which one?" "The one where they asked what advice you'd give to young black women in business." Brenda smiled, remembering the moment. "Don't ask for the seat. Don't wait for the seat. Take it, keep it, and make space for someone else while you're at it. She hadn't planned the words. They just came. Now they were headlines. She leaned against the railing and looked down at the city. The wind swept gently over her face. Below, horns honked. Somewhere, people were rushing to catch trains, clinking glasses over first dates, arguing about nothing. Life kept moving. But in this moment, Brenda let herself feel still. She remembered the little girl who used to sit in her mother's kitchen, flipping through magazines and wondering why no one in those pages looked like her. She remembered being 16 and being told she was too direct. She remembered every time she was told to smile more, lighten up, be grateful. And then she remembered the flight, the coldness in that first-class cabin, the silence of the people who knew it was wrong and said nothing. The look on that man's face when he stood up, how much it cost him nothing and cost her everything. But she also remembered standing up, not just for herself, but for every version of her that had ever been told to sit down. She turned back toward the lounge, toward her team, toward the future. Nina was chatting with Rachel, laughing about something. Someone turned up the music. A few more staff from the partner firm had arrived, offering champagne toasts and timid grins. Brenda picked up her glass again. This wasn't the end of the story. It never really ends, not for people like her. But for tonight, she let herself have the rarest reward of all, a moment of joy that didn't ask her to shrink, and a seat at the top that no one, not protocol, not pressure, not perception, could take from her again.